Have you ever wondered why this exact message appeared in your awareness right now? The truth is, you didn't stumble on this by accident. Your consciousness drew it into your field because you've reached the threshold where the hidden truth of the observer effect can finally be revealed to you. Most people only know the version taught in classrooms, the double-slit experiment. Electrons behaving like waves until measured, then collapsing into particles. They leave it there, as if the observer effect were only a strange quirk of physics, locked away in laboratories. That is the half-truth. The real story is far more personal and far more powerful. Observation is not passive. It is not just watching events unfold. It is the invisible scriptwriter of your reality. Every thought you focus on, every emotion you amplify, every belief you hold with intensity, these are acts of observation, collapsing infinite probabilities into the single experience you call your life. You are not simply living inside reality. You are shaping it every moment. That's why you've been sensing strange signs, synchronicities appearing with uncanny precision, déjà vu moments that feel like echoes from another timeline. The unshakable feeling that your attention bends the world around you. These aren't coincidences. They are signals that your observer effect is no longer unconscious. It's waking up, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Tonight, you will hear the truth about the observer effect that science never told you. You will understand why so many remain trapped in repeating loops and how you can step beyond them. Because this is not just theory. This is the key to shifting your reality. Right now, the way most of us first encounter the observer effect is through a simplified story from physics. The famous double-slit experiment. You've probably heard it before. When particles like electrons are not being measured, they behave like waves, spreading out and interfering with each other. But the moment they are observed or measured, they collapse into particles, creating fixed patterns on the screen. This experiment shocked scientists because it suggested that reality is not fixed until it is observed. In the world of classical physics, objects were thought to exist independently, regardless of whether anyone looked at them. But quantum physics introduced a radical twist. Observation itself appears to determine the outcome for decades. This story has been taught in schools and referenced in documentaries, often described as a mysterious quirk of the quantum world. Students hear phrases like, "The observer collapses the wave function," without much explanation of what it truly means. The message is left vague, almost like a riddle. Reality behaves differently when watched. The textbook version usually stops there. It reduces the observer effect to a scientific curiosity, a strange laboratory phenomenon that seems unrelated to everyday life. It is presented as something distant, abstract, and reserved for scientists in white coats. People come away fascinated but also detached, thinking, "That's interesting, but it has nothing to do with me." And yet, this limited interpretation has kept humanity blind, because what the textbooks describe in subatomic particles is the same principle that operates in your daily reality. Observation is not confined to physics labs. It is happening in your mind, in your emotions, and in your attention every single moment. The truth is, the observer effect is not just about particles, it is about you. Here's the trap. When people hear about the observer effect only in the context of physics, they unconsciously dismiss its relevance to their own lives. They file it away as a scientific anomaly, an intellectual curiosity. That's something scientists deal with in laboratories. They think, "It has nothing to do with me." This separation is the illusion that keeps people trapped. By reducing the observer effect to subatomic experiments, humanity has been taught to look outward, to watch scientists study particles, instead of looking inward at the particles of thought and emotion within themselves. The laboratory becomes a distraction from the real experiment happening every second in your consciousness. This creates a hidden cycle. You live your life believing that circumstances happen to you, Instead of recognizing that your attention is constantly shaping those very circumstances, you believe you're just a spectator of events, rather than the observer collapsing possibilities into reality. The moment you accept this limited version, you unconsciously surrender your power. You give away the creative authority that has been operating within you since the day you were born. That is why most people feel powerless to change. They think reality is fixed, external, and independent. They don't realize that their own act of observation, their focus, their beliefs, their emotional charge is the very mechanism by which reality solidifies around them. And so, they keep repeating the same stories, wondering why nothing shifts. The trap is subtle but devastating, treating the observer effect as science instead of self. Until you see it as personal, you will keep living as though your reality is accidental. But the moment you realize it applies to you, the game of life changes forever. When the observer effect is reduced to nothing more than a scientific anomaly, people unknowingly ignore the most powerful creative force within them. They go on living as if life is happening randomly, never realizing that their very act of observation is what locks each moment into form. The consequence is a life lived in unconscious repetition. Look around at the patterns that keep showing up in your life. The same kinds of relationships, the same disappointments, the same struggles that seem to circle back no matter what you try. This is not coincidence. It is the direct result of observing yourself as the same person every single day. Each morning you wake up and collapse into the familiar self-image, the same doubts, the same fears, the same stories, and the quantum field, loyal and precise, delivers realities that match that observation. This is why people feel trapped, not because reality is against them, but because they are unconsciously choosing the same frequencies over and over again. It's like shining a spotlight on yesterday and wondering why tomorrow looks the same. Your attention keeps pulling the old into the present. The tragedy is that no one told you your observation was creative. You were taught to think of thoughts as private, emotions as personal, and attention as harmless. But the truth is, these are the levers of reality. They are the quantum measurements that shape your world. Ignoring this truth has kept humanity asleep. But once you see it, you cannot go back. You realize that every pattern you thought was fate is actually feedback from your own observation, and that recognition is the beginning of freedom. Most people think of thoughts as harmless and private. But in quantum terms, there is no such thing as a neutral thought. Every single one of them is an act of observation. Each thought is a lens, narrowing infinite probabilities into a single outcome. And when that thought is charged with emotion, its power intensifies. Emotions are amplifiers, turning a quiet observation into a command to the field. When you worry, you're not simply imagining worst-case scenarios. You're actively observing a fear-based probability and anchoring it into your reality. Anxiety is not just mental noise, it is the collapse of futures into a timeline you do not want. That's why worry feels so heavy. It isn't just in your head, it is in the field, shaping the circumstances around you. The same principle works in the opposite direction. When you focus on what excites you, when you hold gratitude, when you look at life through love, you are collapsing probabilities of abundance and coherence. Love is not passive, it is a creative frequency. It selects timelines aligned with expansion and joy. That is why moments of pure joy often feel magical doors open. Synchronicities appear. Everything flows. Your inner state is never just inside. It is your observation in action. Thoughts direct. Emotions amplify. Together, they collapse reality into form. This means your life is not random. It is a mirror of what you've been consistently observing within yourself. So pause and ask, what am I observing right now? Because with every pulse of thought and wave of feeling, you are steering your reality toward one timeline or another. Observation is not passive. It is creation itself. How do you know the observer effect is active in your life? It shows up in subtle but undeniable signs. The first is synchronicity, those perfect alignments that feel too precise to be coincidence. You think of someone, and they call you, you wonder about an idea, and the exact book or video appears. These are not random accidents. They are reflections of your observation aligning the field around you. Another sign is déjà vu, that strange sensation that you've lived a moment before, down to the exact details. Most people dismiss it as a brain glitch, but it is far more profound. Déjà vu is evidence of overlapping timelines, your consciousness brushing against another probability you've already observed elsewhere. It's a quantum echo, a reminder that reality is not linear, but layered. Then there are the reality mirrors. Have you noticed how your external world reflects your inner state with uncanny precision when you're calm and centered? Situations seem to resolve effortlessly, but when you're anxious, everything feels chaotic. People mirror your emotions. Technology glitches according to your mood. Events arrange themselves to match your expectation. Reality doesn't just happen to you, it happens through you. These signs are the universe whispering. Pay attention. You are the observer. They're not meant to confuse you. They're meant to awaken you to the fact that your consciousness is no longer passive. It's shaping events, weaving synchronicities, and bending time around you. The question is whether you will keep dismissing these signs as coincidence or recognize them as evidence that the observer effect is already alive and active in your life. Imagine holding a piece of shattered holographic glass. Each fragment contains a reflection of the whole. But depending on which shard you focus on, the image appears completely different. This is how the observer effect operates in your life. Reality is like a hologram with infinite perspectives. The shard you look through determines the world you experience. When you fixate on fear, you're staring through the shard that reflects limitation. Everywhere you turn, you see confirmation of danger, rejection, or scarcity. The field isn't punishing you, it's simply reflecting the fragment you chose to observe. Shift your gaze, and the image shifts with it. When you choose to look through the shard of love, gratitude, or coherence, the world rearranges to match that perspective. Suddenly, opportunities appear where there were none. Synchronicities multiply. People respond to you differently. It's not magic. It's the holographic nature of consciousness. What you see depends entirely on where you direct your attention. This is why two people can live in the same environment yet experience completely different realities. One is trapped in fear, observing only evidence of struggle. The other focuses on possibility, observing doorways that lead to expansion. Both are looking through shards of the same holographic field, but each reality feels undeniably real. The metaphor of holographic glass reminds you of the simplest but most powerful truth. You always have a choice. You can keep staring through the shard of limitation, or you can turn your gaze toward the shard that reflects your highest timeline. Reality is not fixed. It is a holographic mirror of your observation. The observer loop is one of the most subtle yet powerful traps in human consciousness. It happens when your awareness becomes addicted to observing the same patterns again and again, collapsing them into reality until they form an endless cycle. It's like being caught in a maze that rebuilds itself every time you try to leave because the very act of looking recreates the walls. Think about your daily life. How often do you repeat the same routines, have the same conversations, or feel the same emotions? You might change jobs, relationships, or environments, but the underlying themes remain strangely familiar. That's not random chance. That's your consciousness selecting the same frequency over and over, creating a loop of repetition. The loop is reinforced by expectation. When you wake up already anticipating stress, disappointment, or rejection, you're unconsciously observing those probabilities into existence. And when they arrive, they confirm your expectation, making you even more likely to observe them again tomorrow. It's a self-reinforcing cycle observation creating reality. and reality feeding back into observation. This is why so many people feel stuck, not because they lack opportunities, but because their attention is magnetized to the familiar. The loop feels safe, predictable, but it is also suffocating. It keeps you recycling old timelines instead of stepping into new ones. The observer loop is not punishment. It's simply the mechanics of consciousness on autopilot. The good news is that the moment you recognize the loop, you weaken its grip. Awareness is the first crack in the cycle, the first glimpse of the exit, and once you see it clearly, you can begin to direct your observation toward new possibilities. One of the clearest signals that you're caught in an observer loop is the phenomenon of temporal echoes. These are moments when time itself seems to fold back on you, déjà vu. Glitches in the matrix. The eerie sense that you're replaying the exact same scene. They feel unsettling because they reveal the repetitive nature of your observation. Take déjà vu, for example. Most dismiss it as a brain hiccup. But what if it's something far deeper? Déjà vu is often your consciousness brushing against a timeline you've already collapsed before. It's the recognition of a pattern repeating, a quantum echo of your own observation feeding back to you. That's why it feels both familiar and strange. You've observed it already. And now you're observing it again. Glitches are another sign. Technology misfires. Repeating numbers. Conversations that loop unnaturally. Or even people saying the exact same phrase in different contexts. These aren't random quirks. They're the field showing you that your consciousness is running the same code over and over again. Reality reflects your inner programming. And when the loop is especially tight, it reveals itself as a glitch in your perception of time and space. Temporal echoes are like whispers from your higher self, pointing out the cycle. They're not meant to frighten you, but to wake you up. They're signals that say, look closer, you are observing the same frequency again. If you've been experiencing déjà vu or noticing glitches with increasing intensity, it isn't coincidence. It's evidence that your consciousness is pressing against the boundaries of repetition, preparing you to break free from the loop. Recognition is the first step toward liberation. The most deceptive part of the observer loop is that it feels safe. Repetition, even when painful, offers a strange comfort. Your mind says, at least I know what to expect. The familiar becomes addictive because uncertainty feels dangerous. So you unconsciously keep observing the same timelines, collapsing the same versions of reality, simply because they are predictable. Think about it. How many times have you stayed in situations that didn't serve you? A draining job, a toxic relationship, a limiting belief just because they felt familiar? The loop whispers, better the devil you know than the one you don't. And so, you accept recycled experiences, mistaking predictability for stability. But quantum reality is not designed for stagnation. It is designed for expansion. When you keep looping the old, life begins to compress, opportunities seem scarce, synchronicities dry up, time itself feels heavy and repetitive. This is not because the universe is against you, it's because your observation is anchoring the same frame of reality again and again, refusing to let the field reorganize into something new. The false safety of repetition is actually the greatest danger. It convinces you to cling to what you know, even when it limits you. It tricks you into confusing survival with living, but deep inside, your higher self is restless. It knows you were meant to observe more, to collapse higher possibilities, to embody timelines beyond the familiar. The moment you recognize that repetition is not safety but stagnation, the illusion cracks. Awareness creates space, and in that space, a new observation can finally take root. For decades, you've been told that the observer effect is the ultimate key, that your consciousness collapses the wave function into reality. But here's the hidden truth. Even that is only the shadow of something deeper. The observer effect is not the final mechanism. It is the visible tip of an invisible process that happens before you ever observe anything. Think of it this way: by the time you are observing, the choice has already been made. Your consciousness has already tuned itself to a frequency, and that frequency determines which version of reality you're capable of observing. The collapse is not the cause, it's the effect. The true cause is the quantum selection that occurs in the silent space before thought, before attention, before you even realize you are observing. This is why two people can look at the same situation and perceive completely different realities. One collapses it into fear, the other into possibility. The difference is not in what they observed, but in the frequency they embodied before the observation. That frequency acts like the operating system of reality, selecting which version will appear, the observer effect. As science describes it, is like a shadow on the wall. It's real, but it's not the source. The true source is the invisible shift of consciousness that sets the stage for observation itself. Until you learn to recognize and direct this pre-observational state, you'll remain trapped, thinking observation alone is enough. But once you grasp that the real secret lies before observation, the entire game changes. You stop trying to control reality from the surface, and you begin to embody the frequency that generates reality itself. If the real mechanism lies before observation, then the key is not simply watching reality, but embodying a frequency. Consciousness doesn't just collapse waves, it tunes itself to a vibrational field. And that field selects which version of reality you are even able to experience. You don't attract what you want, you align with what you are. Think of a radio. Turning the dial doesn't create the music. It simply reveals the station that was already broadcasting. The same is true of your consciousness. When you embody fear, you tune into the station of limitation, and all you hear is static filled with struggle. When you embody love or coherence, you tune into a completely different station, one filled with harmony, synchronicity, and effortless flow. The music of your reality changes because the frequency you hold has changed. This is why affirmations or surface-level visualization often fail. If you repeat, "I am abundant," while still embodying scarcity, the field reads your frequency, not your words. Reality doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to the vibration you are broadcasting. Embodiment always overrides intention. The secret, then, is surrendering the old frequency instead of trying to fight it. When you release resistance and allow your consciousness to settle into coherence, a shift happens automatically. You don't force reality to change. You become the reality that naturally appears. Embodying frequency is not about effort, it's about resonance. Once you shift from thinking about the reality you want to being the version of yourself who already lives it, the entire field reorganizes around you. That's when the impossible becomes inevitable. The true quantum shift does not happen through force or control. It happens through coherence and surrender. Coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and energy align into a single frequency. Surrender is the moment you release the struggle of trying to control outcomes and allow the field to reorganize naturally. Together, they unlock the deepest transformation available to human consciousness. Think of coherence as tuning all the strings of an instrument. When one string is out of tune, the music feels dissonant, but when every string vibrates in harmony, the entire instrument resonates powerfully. Your consciousness works the same way. Scattered thoughts, conflicting emotions, and divided attention create noise, but when love, clarity, and intention align, your whole being radiates a coherent frequency that the quantum field responds to instantly. Surrender is the courage to let go of the old song. Most people cling to their past patterns because they fear the unknown. They keep trying to force reality into shape with willpower, affirmations, or resistance. But the field doesn't respond to control, it responds to coherence. The moment you surrender, you stop broadcasting noise. and allow your true frequency to emerge. This is the hidden key. The shift happens not when you push harder, but when you let go. You collapse the old frequency by no longer feeding it with attention. You step into the new by embodying coherence and allowing the field to select your highest timeline. In surrender, you realize you were never powerless. You were only holding on too tightly. The real shift begins the moment you trust the quantum field to carry you, and it always does. There comes a moment when awareness is no longer enough. Recognition must turn into declaration. To break the observer loop, you must speak into the field with absolute authority. This loop ends now. Why is declaration so powerful? Because words are not just sounds. They are frequencies carried by intention. When spoken with coherence, they act as quantum commands, sealing your choice into the fabric of reality. A declaration is the moment your inner knowing crystallizes into external resonance. Say it now, even silently in your mind. This loop ends now. My shift is irreversible. Feel the weight of those words. They are not affirmations you hope will work someday. They are activations, collapsing the old frequency. The instant they are declared, every cycle that once felt unbreakable, the patterns of fear, scarcity, self-doubt begins to dissolve the moment you stop feeding it with attention. Declaration cuts the cord. It signals to the field that you are no longer available for repetition. The loop ends not because you escape it, but because you no longer sustain it, and in that surrender, a new timeline opens, one that has been waiting for you all along. For most of your life, you've been observing unconsciously. Thoughts ran on autopilot. Emotions cycled without awareness. And your attention collapsed realities without you even realizing it. You believed life was happening to you, when in truth it was happening through you. This unconscious observation is why patterns repeat. The mind drifts into fear, worry, or limitation. And without awareness, those frequencies become the default setting. You wake up inside the same reality. Not because you're cursed, but because you keep unconsciously observing it into being. The shift begins when you bring light to this process. Conscious observation means noticing, what am I giving my attention to right now? It means catching the moment when your mind spirals into fear and choosing instead to hold love, gratitude, or curiosity. That single pivot in awareness collapses a different reality. You don't need to control every thought. You simply need to wake up enough to realize your observation is never neutral. Every moment you observe unconsciously, you recycle the old. Every moment you observe consciously, you step into the new. This is where empowerment begins, reclaiming the observer within you. Attention is not just mental focus, it is the most powerful creative force you possess. Wherever your attention goes, energy flows. And wherever energy flows, reality begins to crystallize. This is why the quality of your attention determines the quality of your life. Think of attention as a spotlight in a dark theater. Infinite possibilities exist on the stage of the quantum field, but only the area illuminated by your attention comes to life. If you continually shine the light on fear, lack, or limitation, then those aspects step forward and dominate the show. But if you turn your spotlight toward love, abundance, and possibility, a different play unfolds entirely. Most people underestimate their attention. They scatter it across distractions, worries, and fragmented thoughts, never realizing that each fragment is collapsing tiny realities. The field is loyal. It reflects exactly what you consistently observe. So if your attention is fractured, your reality feels chaotic. If your attention is focused with coherence, your reality organizes into harmony. This is why practices like meditation, gratitude, and mindful awareness are so transformative. They train your attention, sharpening the spotlight so it no longer flickers aimlessly. A steady, coherent attention is like a laser, It cuts through probabilities and anchors new realities with precision. Attention is creation in motion. Every outcome in your life is evidence of where your spotlight has been shining. The empowering truth is that you can redirect it at any moment. By choosing where to place your attention, you are literally choosing which version of reality you will live. The observer effect is not just an abstract principle. It shows up in the most practical areas of your life: love, health, and career. The way you observe these areas determines the reality you experience within them. In love, many people unconsciously observe themselves as unworthy or destined for disappointment. They project fear of rejection, and reality mirrors it back through painful relationships. But the moment you shift your observation, seeing yourself as worthy of deep connection and unconditional love, the field reorganizes. You don't chase love. You collapse the version of reality where love already exists. In health, your body is a direct reflection of your observation, constantly focusing on illness, fatigue, or limitation reinforces those timelines. But when you observe your body with gratitude, noticing its strength and resilience, you amplify wellness. Science calls this the placebo effect. But in truth, it is the observer effect consciousness, selecting health from infinite probabilities. In career, the same law applies. If you observe work as struggle, scarcity, or competition, that's exactly what crystallizes. But when you hold the perspective of creativity, opportunity, and service, doors open, synchronicities line up. The field reflects your frequency by placing you in environments that match it. The empowering truth is this: you are never at the mercy of circumstances. You are at the mercy of your own observation. Love, health, and career are not fixed destinies. They are holographic mirrors, reflecting what you consistently choose to see. Change your observation, and you change the entire script of your life. Most powerful, because they interrupt the unconscious loop and anchor a new frequency instantly. These mini rituals act as quantum switches, collapsing the old and opening space for the new. The 3-breath reset. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply, and with each exhale say silently, the old frequency dissolves. After the 3rd breath, place your hand on your chest and affirm, I am coherent with my highest timeline. In less than a minute, you collapse the old loop and align with a new reality. The paper release. Write down one repeating thought or pattern that keeps you trapped. I am always rejected. Or, I never have enough. Then declare, this loop ends now. Tear or burn the paper. The act of destruction symbolizes the collapse of that frequency in the quantum field. Sen, the mirror activation. Stand before a mirror. Look directly into your own eyes and say aloud, I collapse reality with love. The mirror reflects your declaration, reinforcing coherence between inner and outer worlds. These rituals may seem simple, but simplicity is their strength. They bypass overthinking and speak directly to the quantum field through intention, breath, and symbolic action, performed regularly. They train your consciousness to stop feeding the old loop and to embody the frequency of your chosen reality. If many rituals reset your field, micro-practices are the daily habits that keep you aligned. They don't require extra time or effort. They are simple shifts you can weave into ordinary moments. Training your consciousness to observe with intention instead of autopilot is the attention check-in. Several times a day, pause and ask, what am I observing right now? If you catch yourself spiraling into worry or judgment, pivot gently toward gratitude, curiosity, or love. This micro-adjustment collapses a different outcome without needing a full meditation session. The hand on heart pause. When tension rises, place your hand on your chest and breathe slowly. Whisper, I am coherent. This interrupts the stress loop and signals your body to return to alignment. In under 30 seconds, you restore coherence between mind, heart, and field. Sen, the frequency filter. Before making a choice, sending a message, entering a meeting, eating a meal, ask, am I acting from fear or from love? This 1-second check shifts the energy behind your action, ensuring you collapse realities aligned with your highest frequency. S, the gratitude anchor. At random moments, choose one thing. You see a tree, a cup of water, a stranger's smile, and silently thank it. Gratitude instantly amplifies coherence, turning mundane moments into quantum activations. Micro practices may look small, but their repetition builds momentum. They transform your entire life not by giant leaps, but by steady alignment each time you choose love over fear, gratitude over complaint, awareness over autopilot. You rewire your observer state, and reality, faithfully, reorganizes around you. Imagine tossing a single pebble into a still pond. Ripples expand outward in perfect circles, touching every part of the water. This is how your observation works in the quantum field. Each thought, each emotion, is a pebble cast into time. The ripple doesn't just stay where it began, it spreads, influencing moments far beyond the present. When you repeatedly cast pebbles of fear or limitation, the ripples collide with each other, creating turbulence. That's why life feels chaotic and repetitive. Your past observations keep echoing forward, disturbing the waters of your future. But when you cast pebbles of love, gratitude, and coherence, the ripples harmonize, creating smooth waves that carry you effortlessly into higher timelines. Time itself is not a straight line. It is more like the pond fluid, responsive and sensitive to every ripple of consciousness. This means the observation you make today doesn't just shape tomorrow, it also reorganizes the past and influences the probabilities you will encounter weeks, months, or years from now. The time ripple reminds you that nothing you do is insignificant. Every moment of awareness sends waves through the fabric of your reality. The field is listening. The question is, what kind of ripples are you casting? You are not an isolated observer drifting alone in the universe. You are a quantum node, a living connection point in the great web of consciousness. Every thought you hold, every frequency you embody, sends signals through the field, influencing not only your personal reality, but also the collective. Think of a vast network of lights, each bulb connected by invisible wiring. When one bulb brightens, it doesn't just illuminate itself, it strengthens the flow across the entire grid. Your consciousness works in the same way. Each time you shift into coherence, you don't just collapse a higher timeline for yourself, you broadcast that signal into the collective field, making it easier for others to align as well. This is why your awakening matters. Many people believe personal growth is selfish, but the opposite is true. When you elevate your frequency, you become a transmitter, a beacon, a stabilizing force for everyone around you. Your presence alone alters rooms, conversations, even the emotions of strangers who cross your path. And here is the profound truth. Just as your unconscious observation can unconsciously feed collective fear, your conscious observation can consciously seed collective awakening. You are never just one person. You are a node in the living hologram of humanity, and your state ripples outward in ways you may never fully see. To embody your highest timeline is not only to free yourself, it is to shift the grid, it is to light the path for others, and when enough nodes awaken, the entire web of reality transforms. Your consciousness is not isolated inside your mind. It is woven into a living field that scientists and mystics alike describe as the collective consciousness. One of the most powerful ways this field operates is through morphic resonance, the tendency for patterns, once established, to repeat and strengthen across the whole. Think of it like a trail through the forest. The first time someone walks it, the path is rough and hidden, but the more people walk it, the clearer and easier it becomes for everyone else. In the same way, when even one person holds a coherent frequency of love, courage, or awakening, that vibration leaves an imprint in the collective field. It makes it easier for others to access the same state. This is why movements of awakening spread so quickly once they reach a critical mass. You are not simply working on yourself. You are adding weight to the collective resonance. Every time you choose gratitude over fear, coherence over chaos, you're walking the path of light, and you're leaving a trail that others can follow. The beauty of morphic resonance is that you don't have to force anyone to awaken. By embodying your highest frequency, you automatically broadcast it into the field. Others feel it unconsciously. They begin to resonate with it, as if a tuning fork has been struck, awakening the same vibration within them. Your shift is never just personal. It ripples through the field, strengthening humanity's ability to awaken together, and when enough resonance builds, the collective leaps into a new reality. Imagine standing at the edge of an infinite ocean. Every wave represents a potential timeline, some small, some massive, all waiting to be chosen. Most people dip their toes only into the familiar waters, recycling the same experiences over and over. But the truth is, the entire ocean is available. And when enough individuals awaken to this truth, humanity begins to sail into new horizons together. This ocean is the quantum field, a vast expanse of probabilities. You are not limited to the shoreline of your past. You are free to choose new currents, to ride waves that lead to timelines of peace, innovation, love, and collective harmony. The question is not whether the ocean exists, but whether you have the courage to step into it. When you shift your frequency, you send ripples across this ocean. Others feel them, just as boats rising together on the same tide. This is why collective awakening matters. Your shift is never just yours. It lifts the waters for everyone, raising the level of possibility across the field. Picture it, millions of awakened observers, each one a drop returning to the same sea. Their coherence merges, forming waves powerful enough to reshape the destiny of humanity. This is not a dream. It is the natural unfolding of the field when enough nodes resonate at the frequency of love. You are not a solitary drop. You are part of the ocean. And when you embody your highest timeline, you help turn that ocean into a tide of awakening, carrying all of us into the future we've been waiting for. You did not arrive here by accident. This message found you because you were ready to hear it. The observer effect is not just a physics experiment. It is the hidden code of your reality, the reason loops repeat, the reason signs appear, the reason you feel the pull toward awakening. Now you know the deeper truth. Observation is not passive. It is creation. Every thought, every emotion, every frequency you embody collapses infinite probabilities into the single experience called your life. And beyond observation lies the greater secret, the frequency you hold before you even look, the state of being that chooses which reality can appear. The loop ends the moment you declare it. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Say it. This loop ends now. My shift is irreversible. Feel the authority in your voice? This is not wishful thinking. This is a quantum command, collapsing the old and activating the new. You are not just one person. You are a quantum node in the living hologram of humanity. Your awakening lights the grid. Your coherence strengthens the field. Your declaration ripples outward, carrying others into their own remembering. So let this be your moment. Step into your highest timeline with clarity and courage. The ocean of possibilities is open before you. Choose the wave of love, coherence, and awakening. And as you rise, so does the collective. Declare it below, in writing, as a signal to the field. I am coherent with my highest timeline. Hi. Because once you see the truth of the observer effect, you cannot unsee it. Your shift has already begun.